Greetings on Thursday, December 21, 2017. Today we will update the 1957 23-foot Lyman Runabout. She's a runabout, not a sleeper, so she has much more foredeck. The helm station is much further aft than is the, I think about a foot, maybe 18 inches aft of where the sleeper helm station is, and that firewall and bulkhead. By this point, RJ and I have totally stripped the hull, both above and below the waterline. We've stripped the transom, the top sides, and I guess we'll call them the bottom sides. So what we thought we would do here is provide an update that sort of lays out a path forward, talks about some of the issues we've uncovered. But the good news is that save for a few fasteners close to the keel, about 3/4, maybe 80% of the way back to the transom, the fasteners are solid. We find no rot. We find no strakes needing replacement. This hull really in great shape. But of course there are some of the typical Lyman issues, as well as a few others, and I'll hand it over to RJ to pick it up and walk us through some of what we know now we will be doing to this part of the boat next.
All right. We started stripping, removing all the paint. We got that pretty much done. On the bottom, I dry scraped with a scraper and got most of the paint residue off as best I could, and then I applied 1850 paint stripper and removed whatever was left for paint and primer and filler and whatever else was on the bottom. Then I sanded it all with 80 grit sandpaper up to the water line, and noticed that none of the screws or nails or anything are proud of the wood, so we have to go through with a light coat of underwater Bondo and apply it to all the screw heads.
For that we'll use the 3M premium filler, yeah, 2-part.
And then we'll sand that in so that this board is completely smooth down through. As far as the front keel here, a lot of Lymans, most Lymans have the same issue. They have a spot right here where the front of the boat flexes and expands and contracts, and it relieves all this stuff from actually breaking in here. And usually where the carriage bolts run through, these pieces tend to break away and rot away from the head a little bit, as this one. So we'll actually remove the carriage bolt. We'll put a Dutchman in here of solid wood. Then we'll re-drill our hole for our carriage bolt and refasten the carriage bolt and fare that all in with premium filler. And
so we've got, there's one further down, there's that one, and then there's one, yeah, right.
Right here there's also another carriage bolt with, it looks like a little wood plug in it or something. We'll basically do the same thing we do here to this one. And then up top, where it probably hit the trailer, and when it was loaded on the trailer.
More than once it looks like.
Yep. We will put a Dutchman in that starts up above where this bashed in mark is, and we'll run it down and back out and fare that all in so that it looks like it's new.
And then way up the top of the bow we've got what appears to be an old repair that was never quite finished, and RJ and I were just tossing around whether we'll try to sand that in or we'll actually take some material out and do it, maybe a couple of Dutchmen. That's a to be determined issue that we must address. There've got to be somewhere in here, RJ, a couple more carriage bolts. This looks like there's one right in here.
Yep, and there's one at the very top.
Yeah, it's our practice with these carriage bolts, since the stem is so critical to the entire boat. It takes some time, but and RJ gets to climb way up beneath the foredeck. We drive those out, make sure we've got good wood from the exterior side back a ways, and then we re-drill them. And what's kind of neat is, of course, these are what, 6-8 inch carriage bolts, so you've got a borehole on the inside. So we actually drill these from the inside out. We'll have some filling of countersinks to do. It looks like this gunnel has some new wood in it, some new framing material.
Right to about halfway back.
About halfway back, and we will. It's well attached. It fits nicely, but whoever did it never finished it. When I actually stripped that part of it, and I was amazed that at first I thought, oh, the bungs just backed out, but there were never any bungs in there. It was left open because the stainless rub rail, of course, covers the holes. So what the heck? Why fill the holes if you're going to cover them? Nobody will be able to see them. But of course, those are water sinks. There's no rot. This was probably done relatively recently, probably in the last 20 years. So it's sound. So let's go to the back of the boat, the transom. Take a look at what we're up against there.
Right here you can see the
Yeah.
screws. There's a couple screws under there.
So right here we can see a series of screws that have backed out. And are they on starboard as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's interesting there is those appear to be silicon bronze wood screws, Frierson head, and whoever put them in I guess just didn't seat them very well. We will back those out and toothpick those holes with Gorilla Glue so that when we insert new fasteners, the screw threads have good wood to bite on. And as we progress to the back, to the transom, we are again really impressed by the condition of everything. And even, I mean, we've got some splits.
We might do a small little Dutchman here and here.
Right.
But besides that,
there's one spot up there.
One spot of filler.
Right, that we should probably pull out and do as a Dutchman. What's nice is that the planking itself, go ahead, go all the way across. It's solid. And this right here is a lap joint that runs all the way across, and this board is dadoed in on this side.
Actually, it goes up behind this board.
And it goes up behind this board because it's dadoed on the opposite side. So there's a nice overlap here. we will fill this seam with Interlux seam compound for underwater applications. And the nice thing about that seam compound is that even when it cures, it doesn't get hard. So it can move with the wood as the wood expands and contracts. And then finally, the aft tails of the strakes are...
They're actually pretty decent. They're pretty tight. We'll probably go down through there and try to clean out that seam as best we can, and then we'll probably put... And this is
the hull number.
Serial number. Yeah, hull number for the boat.
Yeah, we can tell that's the original keel because the hull number is stamped right into it. It's almost impossible to pick it up with this video camera, but it is there. Let's see if we can.
E70813.
Yeah. So we will, before we remove her off these tall jack stands and put her back on dollies, we will complete our work.
We'll have to sand this in and fair all these lap strake edges in.
Yep, that's above the waterline. Yep.
Yep, and then we will seal it with 2-part epoxy sealer, and then we will put primer on.
Yeah, below the waterline, the primer will be Interlux 2000E 2-part barrier coat. Followed, there'll be 5 coats of that. Dannenberg is absolutely insistent that here you spend all this money and time preparing for paint, and then you skimp on the paint. The 2000E is expensive, but the price and cost are 2 different things. It's expensive because having been applied, it is there. It is there for a long, long time. The 5 coats builds up sufficient film thickness that you really have an impenetrable surface. After that, we use Sandusky's copper bronze antifouling paint. This is the original recipe that Lyman used from the beginning to the end, and Sandusky at some point took it over and continues to manufacture it. Above the waterline, we'll use Interlux pre-coat as our primer, 3 coats and maybe even 4. I mean, there it's about getting it as flat as you can, and
it's really thin.
It's this primer is maddening to paint with. It loves to run vertically. It doesn't hide anything, but as you build up coats and then lightly sand after the first couple, and then really take a block sander and sand with the grain, you end up with a perfect surface for applying the top coat, which in our case will be Interlux Premium Yacht Enamel in semi-gloss white. She's just going to be beautiful because this, I mean, as you sort of sight down the side of the hull, you see that this, even though she's a 1957, so she's 30, 40 going on 50 years old, excuse me, 40, she's going on 60 years old, you see none of the sort of waving in and out of the strakes because remember, this is a narrow strake hull with the ribs set on 6-inch centers and with oversized ribs. Here's the benefit. This is why anybody looking for a Lyman should look for a narrow strake 1950s old style hull. They're just materially significantly stronger than the so-called new style Lyman hulls. So once we have the topside paint, the bottom paint in place, we will not varnish the transom at this point. We will bring the boat down, put it back on dollies, and then it comes time to address the issues on the decks and the covering boards. We will be replacing both decks because there's been some atrocious work done there. Cosmetically, it's awful. Structurally, it's fine. Good plywood was used, just ugly, swirly, incorrect plywood that has really begun to delaminate. So we will.
Thick.
Oh, that's right.
They put on was too thick.
That's right. One side of the deck is about 1/8 of an inch thicker than the other side of the deck. So we will do all of that, and following that, we will be working on the interior simultaneously, and at some point, we hope by spring, she will be in a position to go jump in the water in Texas, where she will live, or in the lakes of upstate New York. So that's where we are as we approach Christmas. We at Snake Mountain Boat Works want to take this opportunity to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a great 2018 boating season. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now from Snake Mountain Boat Works.